Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month's MSP-Ignite Resource Network webinar. As always, we're excited to be bringing the Resource Network webinar series to our members and invited guests. All of the presenters speaking in the series throughout the year have made a commitment to provide our membership with actionable insight into areas that can help them grow or otherwise impact their bottom line in a positive way. Today is certainly no exception to that. Before I introduce our speakers, let's go over some of the logistics and ground rules because we do want to make this an interactive experience for all of you. We are indeed recording this session, so don't worry about that. And we will send you the slideshow as well after the presentation is over. Right? You'll be able to watch the presentation on our YouTube channel once we let you know what's out there. Everyone on the call is going to remain muted except for the presenters. However, please use the Q&A button to ask questions along the way. The presenters will see them. We will have some Q&A time at the end of the session for both presenters, actually, for our sponsor and our presenter at the end of the session. So feel free to put questions in as they pop into your head, and we'll queue them all up for the end of the session. Our keynote speaker today is Doug Kreitzberg. As the previous CEO of USI Affinity and Programs, Doug led Affinity business development, marketing and program business, including professional liability, commercial property and casualty, personal lines, and life and disability programs. Recently, Doug founded SeedPod Cyber, a cyber insurance managing general agency. Hot topic for everybody. Of course, webinars like this do not take place without the assistance of our valued partners and sponsors. For today, we have the pleasure of being sponsored by Augment, and we're fortunate to have Marlene Maloney, Director of Sales for Augment, with us today. As Director of Sales, Marlene leads the sales initiatives and operations for Augment. With over 15 years of experience, she's a proven leader in the channel and was recognized as CRN's Woman of the Channel in 2021. Good afternoon, Marlene.
Good afternoon, Steve. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending today's session. Again, my name is Marlene Maloney. I'm the Director of Sales here at Augment. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you, MSP-Ignite, for having us. And let's just jump into it, shall we? So, and we'll be talking about how Augment and SeedPod are working together to really help MSPs pass along not only discounts to your customers when it comes to cyber insurance, but really providing you as the MSP, this 360-degree protection within your clients' networks. And we're going to be talking more about that. Just a little bit of my personal agenda here is really looking at hybrid IT, SaaS applications, the components, what compromises, what's included with SaaS security, as well as cyber insurance, because that's really what we're here today to talk about. Why the two together, and I say demo, but it's going to be just pretty much a glimpse inside of the Augment portal, the different modules we have, how we can support SaaS security, and how it can help map to cyber insurance. So a little bit of background about Augment, if you're not familiar with us or if you've spoken with us. We were started in 2020 by the same founders of Enable Technologies, an RMM platform. That started back in 2000. We're currently at about 32 employees, and we're actually nearing the 800, almost 1 million licenses deployed of our products. We're 100% MSP focused. We're SOC 2 compliant, so we're talking about cyber insurance and security. Compliance and security are incredibly important to us, our partners, our users, and we want to ensure that you have the most secure tools in your toolkit as well. So as we talk about SaaS security, M365 is, if not the #1 business critical application that your customers, you're using on a day-to-day basis. But the reality is that M365 is also the most targeted application. If you're a hacker, it's the easiest to get into. But what's also great about M365 is that it can be highly secure, it can be highly configurable. But the reality is that, as we know, and if you're not monitoring M365, is that configurations do and will change. So when we talk about security and compliance and cyber insurance, the reason why we're having this conversation today is that cyber insurance companies see an incredible amount of value in our products because we are really focusing on the cloud. And 10 or 15 years ago, all you really needed was an RMM platform to look at the devices, to secure those devices. But the reality is that it's moving into the cloud, and that's where the breaches are really happening. So a lot of these statistics you've probably seen before, you've heard it, that 99% of all breaches could have been prevented if MFA had been enabled. So our goal with Augment is really to help you monitor, manage security policies within Microsoft, within M365. The next challenge is all those SaaS applications beyond M365, which many refer to as shadow IT. So how do you discover all of the applications? How do you understand, get visibility into all of the applications, be them in the cloud or locally installed, that your customers are using without some sort of audit? I'm sure many of you on the line use tools to audit before you onboard a customer. You're going in to get that insight, making sure there's no skeletons in the closet. How many SaaS applications are you confident, are you 100% in knowing what your customers and prospective customers are using? Are these applications secure and compliant? Are there any duplicate apps, unused or unused licenses? And are you able to give an accurate answer around that? Augment is able to help you get those insights so that when we talk about cyber insurance and mapping and reporting, that you have a full understanding of what your customers are using on a day-to-day basis. And truly, it's about understanding, are users using unsanctioned applications that could potentially pose a breach? They could expose documentation outside of the network that could be incredibly sensitive that they really shouldn't be sharing. So, when we talk about what MSPs really want from a day-to-day basis, I would hope that most people on the line here would agree that it's to grow their services revenue, to make it easier to onboard new customers, drive down the cost of delivering services, and to be that trusted advisor. The reality is that all you needed 10 or 15 years ago was an RMM platform to look at monitoring and managing those devices. As I mentioned earlier, breaches are now, for the majority, cloud-based. Data loss is happening. RMMs, for the most part, really haven't evolved to be able to get that visibility to monitor and manage M365 security policies, MFA being the #1 policy, but also when it comes to M365 administrative tasks, onboarding, offboarding, password resets, enabling MFA, being able to understand SaaS application usage. So that's really, when I mentioned earlier about the two Enable co-founders, were the founders of Augment, is they really want to bring that same sort of functionality to MSPs. So you can audit your local environment, the traditional infrastructure, but what does that look like in the cloud? And we don't want you guessing. We don't want you jumping through hoops and having to log in and out of portals. We want to make sure that it's centrally managed so that you understand from a configuration perspective at any given point what the lay of the land looks like for your customers. And this question, I'd love to get some feedback maybe in the chat of where you think you sit as it relates to the maturity scale. I know you've probably all heard about Gartner and their maturity scale, but when we start talking about M365 security policies and posture and making sure that the MSPs are managing that, when we look at reactive, that's really about setting it up, relying on alerts, kind of fighting fires, and just dealing with it as it comes. But as you move into that proactive and managed, that's really about getting better at setting it up, monitoring it, and the more that you do that, the more your techs can handle as well. So this is really where we want to take MSPs as you become more of that managed SaaS security provider. you're getting into cyber insurance, you're providing these services to your customers, but this is ultimately kind of that evolution as it relates to SaaS security. And then how would you use Augment as part of a cyber insurance audit? I mean, this is really kind of that roadmap. And I know Doug will get into this, but ultimately it's about doing that comprehensive SaaS discovery audit, understanding who is using what, just like you would, a network or security audit, being able to leverage M365 threat reports. So being able to provide reports to your customers, to auditors on what are the actual threats and vulnerabilities, and then being able to customize MFA alerts as well, so that you understand at any given point should something change or be disabled, that you can be able to resolve it very quickly, and then being able to configure those policies to be proactive and be sure that you're on top of your client's M365 tenants, and then being able to document. So being able to provide those reports on ongoing security improvements. Through our platform, we provide recommendations so that you can best improve the security posture. And ultimately, it's limiting those alerts that you're getting, limiting those notifications so that instead of fighting fires, you're getting in front of those fires and you're implementing those configuration changes to best secure your customers' M365 tenant. So, all right. So I'm going to, as I mentioned, not so much a demo, more of a glimpse into our platform. Just confirm that you're able to see my dashboard here.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect, thank you. So I mentioned so this is the Augment platform, and of course, we're happy to walk you through a demo if you want to explore it more. But the great thing about our interface, it's very easy to, well, our platform is very easy to set up and understand. Secure is really about MFA, posture management, policy configuration, but really understanding from an M365 security perspective so that any given point, any given day, you'd be able to see the status of all of your customers' MFA. You can create threat reports so you understand exactly, you can show a customer, you can show a prospect where the security issues and the threats and vulnerabilities lie. And then we provide you with a security posture report on what can you actually do to increase their score, limit the threats, limit the notifications that you're getting. Because again, if you're just relying on alerts to manage M365, it's just not a proactive approach. So that's secure. And then for Discover, this is really about shadow IT application usage and understanding, if we've got users using Dropbox, why are they using it when they should be using SharePoint? And the great thing is that we provide intelligence around who is using the applications. Are these high risk? You can set up alerts as well. So if you do set Dropbox to be a restricted application, you can set up notifications that if maybe that user goes back to try and access it, you would receive a notification. So it really helps you get full view, that 360, in addition to your RMM platform and some of the tools that are looking at the endpoints and devices. This is really helping you get a full view into cloud and cloud security, M365 security. And last but not least, just a couple of last slides here before I pass it over to Doug. The great thing is that SeedPod is willing to give you a discount if you use Augment's products. We do provide, and you can sign up using that URL at the bottom of the page. We provide you with 100 free licenses of Discover, super easy to get started. And we'll provide you with a bit more of a demo so you get a better understanding of it. But we will include some NFRs, we'll include some licenses of our other products as well. And should you be interested in partnering with Augment, we have a great MSP site license promotion with MSP-Ignite. It works out to be 5 to 10 cents a user. You get a lot of licenses. We want to make sure that you can deploy it across your customer base. A license is a mailbox user, which is compared to a regular list price of 50 cents. So if you are interested, you can sign up to and use that URL. But without further ado, I will pass it over to Doug, and where he'll talk to more about how our solutions and his offering are working together to help you and your customer save money as it relates to cyber insurance.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Marlene. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Steve and John as well. I'm going to walk through, talk about cyber insurance in a number of different perspectives. First, just give you a little bit of trends in terms of how did we get where we are today with regards to cyber insurance, and what you're becoming more actively involved with and why. Also, what components are the underwriters looking at and looking for, and what can you do? What are opportunities for you as part of this process, as well as what are some things that you need to be sensitized to when you're working with your clients with regards to cyber insurance. I'll also talk a little bit about, share some horror stories, MSP horror stories, just from the claim side that we've seen, and some points that you may want to think about as you evaluate your own cyber insurance. What I'll just by way of background, Steve kind of mentioned that I worked in the insurance space. I'm running a managing general agency where we've developed a special program where we align our underwriting criteria with the tech stack that managed service providers are offering to their clients. And any clients that are on that tech stack then benefit from the fact that they can be pre-approved for coverage from a technical standpoint, and they're eligible for savings as well, because of our ability to work with you and to identify the actual controls that are in place. To give a little, for a number of years and really almost since the beginning, which is roughly 1996, cyber insurance has been relatively easy to get. It was, as I would say, insurance carriers were pricing to gain share, not pricing for the risks that those policies represented. And you could, in many situations, just put the name of your company, put your website, put your revenues, and you would get a quote or a policy very quickly. And the insurance brokers loved it, of course. And over the years, the coverage would expand and evolve as each carrier was trying to differentiate itself. Well, fast forward to today, and it's more like the insureds are sitting taking a polygraph test, and there's a real in-depth, or there's attempts to provide a more of an in-depth analysis of what those risks actually represent, and the underwriting has dramatically changed. And just to give you a little sense of why, basically this graph kind of tells it. This is, you can see the hockey stick growth here in ransomware losses after really 2018 spiking up, largely driven by COVID and working from home, largely driven from the ransomware crime families marketing their tools to almost in a wholesale fashion for other ransomware organizations to take advantage of. And certainly with regards to more of a focus on the really targeting individuals through social engineering and other exploits here. And you can see, this doesn't just hit the large firms. So the medium-sized business targeted is 168 employees. So this is really an issue largely for the small and medium-sized business. And of particular note, the average length of time, as you may know, it takes to recover after a ransomware attack is 26 days. And 26 days, that really drove a lot of, and we'll look at a slide later, of the claim expenses relating to these attacks, coming from a business income, profitability, and extra expense here. And so what do carriers do when they're losing money? They do one of three things, or they do all of these three things. One, some of them decided to exit it. They didn't like what they were seeing. They didn't feel they could recover effectively, and so they just pulled out. Most raised rates, somewhere on the order of 90% to 300%, depending upon the industry in which you were in. And most, if not all of them, also lowered limits here. And this is a typical response that carriers do when they're facing that. And you can see on this slide that there was some benefit to that. And I'll just spend a little time outlining it. The bars represent premium, and the red line represents the loss ratio. So you can see, and the loss ratio is basically the percentage of claims losses divided by the overall premiums that you receive. So when the loss ratios get up above 60, 65%, you're really pushing the limits of what makes a carrier profitable or not. And you can see last year loss ratios went over 70%, and it caused premiums to be increased on average 92% last year. And that did help move that loss ratio down, but it didn't move it down as much as the premiums increased. And what that says is that the claims aren't slowing down either. It's just that they didn't rise at 92% as the premiums did, but they're still increasing. And so what carriers are still looking at beyond just raising rates and beyond just reducing limits is we need to pay more attention to the internal environment. We need to be paying more attention to the controls that are in place, and we need to figure out a way to get some visibility into it. And overall, carriers are looking at certainly the business stability of the organization, the types and volume of data. How are they governing risk? What is their approach to that? Certainly what industry they're in, the revenue size, but what's more particular, especially to you in terms of your business strategies, is what are the technical controls do they have in place? And there's a subset. Each carrier has a different view towards this, but there's an overall subset that I think that you should be thinking about when you're putting together your tech stack for your clients to meet these security or insurability, if you will, obligations. And then the basic Insurability Kit, none of this should be earth-shattering here, but I'll just kind of walk through them. The multi-factor authentication, Marlene talked about this, certainly with regards to the SaaS environment. And each carrier will have a different take on what they're looking for. Mostly they're looking for certainly MFA deployed for any remote sessions, and then MFA deployed locally for admin sessions as well. So that's something that to make sure that that's certainly part of your tech stack. The patching, asset inventory, patching is certainly critical, especially the security patches. And many of you do that through your RMM solutions. The backup solution, including an offline component to that, with different credentials than your admin credentials for the network, and make sure that that is encrypted and that you're doing some data recovery testing as part of that as well. Firewalls, AVs, certainly email filtering. Email and DNS filtering, and making sure that DMARC is enabled, and then the EDR and EDR solution. Many carriers are looking for encryption, both at rest and in transit. They're willing to look at compensating controls because sometimes the data at rest is difficult from an encryption standpoint. Security awareness training and phishing simulations, that is certainly important. Marlene mentioned SaaS security, and this is growing in terms of from the perspective of the carriers as an area that they need to look at more. As Marlene mentioned, more of the breaches are coming from the cloud, more of the data is in the cloud. And there's two components. It's the MFA for the applications, at least the critical applications, but it's also that shadow IT that Marlene mentioned, being able to identify applications that should not be there, and more importantly, if you can, to whitelist the ones that should exist in the organization. And last but certainly not least is an incident response plan. And a plan that doesn't just sit on a drive somewhere or on a shelf, but that is tested on a periodic basis, some type of IR tabletop exercise there. So these are the basic insurability kits. And this, as you look at it, you're probably offering most, if not all of these today. And now whether your clients are taking you up on it, some obviously are and some are not. But I would argue, that the need to get cyber insurance isn't just from a defensive standpoint. It's also now becoming from a value and client standpoint. Many clients are asking your customers for proof of cyber insurance, and some of them are also asking for proof of cybersecurity controls. But as more clients are beginning to ask that, clients who haven't been, shopping for the cyber insurance are now in the market, and they're going to need to have this tech stack in place if they want to get the pricing and get the terms, quite frankly. So there is a lot of opportunity here in two ways. The first certainly is the upsell of products to move your clients into the tech stack there. But the other way, which I think is almost as impactful, is to position yourself as a digital risk or cyber risk manager, or certainly advisor, which is really now almost table stakes for any organization that wants to grow. Every organization is now a digital organization. COVID has shown us that, if nothing else did. And every organization has a component of risk that includes cyber risk. And you're in a great position to sit there and kind of talk through the risks that their digital footprint represents, ways to mitigate it while still keeping within the business strategy and goals of your client overall. And I think that's a great position to be in, and one that really there's not many individuals that are having those conversations with your clients today. That being said, there are horror stories, some of which could emanate from the discussions that I just had, and I'll speak to that in a moment. But I do want to walk through a number of claim scenarios, just something to keep in mind from a risk management perspective yourself. One is this was a claim that occurred where the MSP itself suffered a ransomware attack, and the MSP did quite frankly what it needed to do in terms of helping its clients and mitigating the threat. They were responsive. They worked with the clients. They helped to shut down the attack as soon as possible, restore the clients, and yet at the same time, at the end of the day, the clients did turn around and sue them for damages that they incurred. So that exposure, you can do the right things and yet still get sued and still have to go through that. even when an incident does occur there. And it's important that you have, the right terms and conditions and support from an insurance side, in addition to working with the clients and doing the right thing by them. The other issue is this actually was a ransomware attack that occurred on the client end. The client suffered the attack. Client brought in, who was insured, they brought in their forensics. The forensics did a review, and the forensics concluded that the attack generated from the MSP's environment. So now the MSP is being sued by the insurance carrier representing the client, and the client suing for its deductible to recover the cost there. So just because the client is insured doesn't mean that you don't need to have insurance in place, because they will, if they do see and feel that the incident resulted from negligence on your part, they will be seeking to recover the costs there. And this is kind of relatable almost to the first one. A good deed, actually this says good need, this is actually a need, but good deed never goes unpunished. And that is this was a situation, this related actually to an attack, a famous attack. I will not mention the name, that happened last July. One MSP was involved in this, and the MSP did what it thought was the right thing and immediately started doing restoration work for its clients. And they spent about $1 million doing so. They got the clients back up and running. Everything was working. They turned around and went to their carrier with the bill for the expenses to do the work, and the carrier denied coverage because the carrier was not did not give the approval for that MSP to go ahead and do that work. And you need to be careful when an incident occurs that you're not going in there to make changes or fix, more importantly, without clearance from your carrier, for a couple of reasons. Some carriers view that they want to have kind of a third party go in, a disinterested third party to go in and make sure that the forensics is done correctly and up front to know what happened. And also they just want to be in a position to be able to understand what you're going to do. In many cases, you guys will be the ones with the best knowledge of the systems to get it done right and get it done as quickly as possible. And in many situations, the carrier will let you do it, but you need to get that sign off there. This isn't so much a claim as it is something that you need to pay attention to for your own Tech E&O and cyber insurance. And I won't nerd all out on you from an insurance perspective too much. I would say that you need to pay particular attention to the definition of the Tech E&O, the tech errors and omissions that they are covered from, the technical services that you are doing, that they're covering you for, as well as the technology, as well as professional services. There's typically 3 components to their definition of technology there, and you need to make sure that is representative, that language is representative of what you're doing. I've seen a number of policies that were really written on what's called a miscellaneous errors and omissions form, in which the definition of technology services is not adequate for the services that an MSP was providing. And when if a claim occurred and it was due to a service that wasn't within the coverage definition, it's likely that carrier will not provide coverage. So you really need to make sure. Another point on this is I've seen some MSPs with Tech E&O coverage from one carrier and cyber from another. that I would just say that's setting you up for issues when a claim occurs, because they're typically going to occur within a cyber incident environment, and each carrier is going to start pointing fingers at each other, and you're going to be caught in the middle. So I just caution you, if you can, is to get your Tech E&O and cyber coverage together with one carrier. And then the last point along these lines is, and this is actually a lawsuit or an action that just went to the courts about a month ago. Travelers versus ICS. Travelers is an insurance company. ICS is one of their insureds. Travelers is alleging that ICS claimed it had multi-factor authentication on its privileged and sensitive assets. They suffered a ransomware attack. Travelers went in, saw the MFA was only on the firewall, and basically they said they're rescinding coverage. They're actually rolling back coverage as if it never was in place, because they're claiming if they knew that there was only MFA on the firewall, they would not have written this coverage. And what this one thing that this should highlight for you, you're being asked many times, could be daily or weekly, to fill out the technical part of the application of your clients, of the cyber insurance. And you need to make sure that you are accurate, responding to it in an accurate way. And if you need to add additional piece of paper to clarify what exists in the environment, if you need to have your client reach out to the carrier to really ask what do they mean by their question around multi-factor authentication, as an example, you want to make sure that you're answering this accurately. And it's okay to, as I said, if you only have MFA partially, put that on the application. You don't want to just kind of check things off and hope that the carrier isn't going to focus on it too much. They may not focus on it at the time that the policy is issued, but they will be focusing on it if there's a claim going through the process. So make sure that you're taking care of that. And any questions that you're being asked to fill out that are really questions the business should fill out, make sure that you're not answering those, such as, does the firm do background checks? What is the procedures around validating wire transfers? There could be other questions that may be that may be blank when you get it, and just don't fill those out. Have the firm do it. So that's that's the overall presentation. Just a couple things to remember. The changes that the insurance carrier is going through and the types of controls that they're looking for now really present an opportunity for you as a valued partner for your clients. Build the tech stack around the insurability tech stack. Make sure you have the solutions in place and the expertise to appropriately deploy them. Position yourself as a risk manager for your clients, because you are the ones who know most about cyber risk, I would imagine, among your clients, and that's something that they really need as they go forward and try to compete with their own businesses. We just talked about authenticity. Be truthful when answering the applications. Don't answer questions that are outside of your scope, and be yourself. Make sure that who you are and the services that you provide are adequately defined in your Tech E&O policy. So again, I really appreciate your time, and won't go into a lot of details about how we work, except to say that we're an insurance cyber insurance provider that partners with managed service providers. We work to help you be successful, help you secure yourself, and have your clients be secured. So thank you, and be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, we definitely have a few, Doug. Thank you. Nice presentation. Fantastic job by both you and Marlene. If any of you have questions based on Augment or SeedPod, please go ahead and post in the Q&A. We do have some time left, and we should be able to get to all of them. Before I jump into some of the questions that were posted, Doug, you really piqued my interest right at the end there when you made the comment of, don't be afraid to add a piece of paper to these questionnaires. So
Right.
frequently I hear people say, you know, all these questions are yes and no questions. The problem is the answers are not yes and no. And
Right.
I hear this all the time
Right.
from MSPs.
Yeah, and I think I don't. It's fair to say that the individuals on this call know more about cyber risk than the underwriters that are sitting in an insurance carrier. Most of them. It's always tough to make too many generalizations.
There's a couple in this call I can point out that might not, but most I would agree with you do. Let me ask you this. Even from a documentation standpoint, it would seem to me that frequently an MSP is faced with an owner who just wants to get the lowest premium rate they can get, and we're helping them answer questions honestly. And as soon as we submit a piece of paper or walk them through saying you should say this on this question, that on this question, we better document the conversation and what we send to them as well, right?
Yes, you should definitely document, and I've spoken to a number of MSPs as they're going through the application, and we'll just use the MFA question. They answer, no, they don't have MFA, and the client will say, what do you mean I don't have MFA? And the MSP will say, well, I've offered it to you, every once a year, and you've always said no. You really need to document. First of all, I would not answer the questions otherwise. What the client ends up, how the client ends up answering isn't, you can't control that certainly, but I would kind of stick to your guns, so to speak, with regards to what's actually in the environment. Not only would I document, any conversations around the application, I would also just document any conversations around the times that you've presented security options to your client and they've declined those.
Yeah, it's the age-old battle with MSPs of documenting everything, including the account management and sales conversations we have.
Right.
You talked a little bit about getting the security stack right, and someone asked a question about that. Do you have any documentation to actually show that the MSPs end user clients what risks they're taking if they don't get their security stack right, and if they choose not to get cyber insurance policy, what risks they're taking? Do you have any documentation, paperwork, or anything like that on that?
Yeah, we have. There's a number of items that we provide along those lines. We talk about the average cost of an incident is a non-ransomware incident is around $150,000. The average cost this for a small business. The average cost of a ransomware incident is $268,000, and the average business interruption cost, that lost profitability and or increased expenses while you're down during a ransomware event, is around $500,000. And the frequency of the probability of that event, we actually run, our own organization runs a number of statistical analyses based on the type of organization that we can provide them to show here's the total cost of risk, and here's the cost of risk if you implement these controls. I would hesitant to say that we can be that granular to focus in on one particular control overall, except for perhaps the MFA, which is a huge component. Probably MFA and patching are two huge components there. But we can present, certainly the costs, the probabilities of risk, I guess, probabilities of loss that the client can then use to evaluate what it wants to do.
Great, thank you. For those of you listening, yes, chat is indeed disabled. There's a Q&A button. If you use that to answer your questions, we'll be happy to ask them for you. Would you recommend that onboarding requirements for a new MSP client for all or some of the areas in the basic insurability kit? How early should that conversation requirement happen? Like, should it be right on onboarding?
I would recommend doing that in the beginning there. And some MSPs now are just only are requiring the security stack in order for them to be a client, period. But I would definitely recommend walk them through, there's a number of reasons for to be on the insurability stack, if I can use that term, and get them to understand. And that's really where the MSP starts playing that role of risk manager, which is needed.
Yep. How about existing clients? Like, would you go back mid-contract and say, we really need to get you up to speed on this stack, or we can't keep working with you? Or do you plan for it towards the end of term on a contract, like renewal time?
I think you start setting the seeds, especially if you're doing quarterly reviews with your clients or semi-annual reviews, whatever your frequency is, that you include in your conversation and review of what's been done and what's to be done, a component on the security, and include within that kind of a risk posture. Marlene and the Augment tool, as one example, provides a good picture of the deployment of MFA and or shadow IT, among other things, within the organization. Other tools provide similar reports, so you can kind of not only tell them what their security profile is, but there are many tools that you probably have that can show them, and talk about migrating up the tech stack. Sometimes you don't have to eat the elephant all in one bite. You can get them to move forward. But at some point, you may want to start, as if you're getting up to renewal time, to say, hey, we're migrating in a different direction. The security environment has changed dramatically. For our own insurance side, we need to have clients to be up on this tech stack, and this is sort of the direction we're going there.
Great. We have a couple of things that I don't think are appropriate on here related to how you compare to somebody else, but do you guys sell all across the U.S. as far as coverage?
We do.
Goes?
Yep.
And
we sell U.S.
What about Canada?
We don't sell to Canada. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't sell in Canada. I've got a number of requests, and we're working on it, but not today.
Yep, I got it. Someone wrote, I'm just trying to make sure I understand this one. Caveats on the technical sections of the applications, i.e. partial MFA compliance. There's two questions related to this. Someone else put, and I think he didn't hear you answer partially already, but I said there's a lot of yes/no questions. For example, is MFA in place? Well, that's not really a yes or no question, or shouldn't be.
Right.
Yet it's out there. And is that where the MSP should say, well, here's the real answer to that, and it's more of a detailed discussion or paragraph about here's where MFA is in place, here's where it might be lacking in this environment or is lacking in this environment. Is that where we should with that?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, and I don't want to there's going to be different answers for every different situation, but in that example, it's fair to say that let's talk the travelers. If they had put MFA is deployed on the firewall, period, the underwriter could look at that, and the underwriter may have a question, say, well, is it deployed anywhere else? And they would respond. The MSP could have also written, and I don't know if the MSP filled out that application, by the way. But the MSP, you could fill out the MFA is deployed only on the firewall, or it's deployed on the firewall or it's deployed through our M365 environment, period, or it's deployed only through our M365 environment. You can just be specific. I wouldn't necessarily go into, well, there's a lot of other things that we could do, and we just don't, you don't have to, You don't have to get too verbose through it. Answer the questions, but be thorough in terms of that answer. Just you don't have to do a total 360 on the overall environment when you're answering those questions. If that makes any sense.
And well, it doesn't. I'm curious what your take is on that. When I think about that, I say, here's the problem we as MSPs, as small business owners of IT companies, get caught up in. Our customer expects us, in essence, to be complicit with insurance fraud and how we answer the questions to get them a good rate, but still make sure that they're covered. And really what we need to be saying is, here's the actual answer to the question. You take it for what you want, but if we're questioned later, we're going to say, here's the documentation that we told the customer that they have MFA on the following devices. And we didn't tell them they had it anywhere else. Is that fair?
Right. That, yes. And be accurate, be complete. Now, if you were answering that question as MFA on all privileged assets, I forget the actual question that travelers had, but the answer to that really is no, right? Because it's not deployed on all privileged assets, and you would need to respond that way. And if you're getting pressure from a client, no one likes to lose clients, certainly, and no one likes to confront clients over these. But this is pretty defensible, and what I would, everyone will deal with their clients in different ways. From the client's perspective, look, you're buying coverage in order to have it when you need it. And answering these questions any other way but truthfully is going to make sure that you're going to have is going to guarantee that you won't have, or at least give you a high probability you're not going to have coverage, and you're just throwing dollars away. It doesn't matter if you save $5 on the premium when your $1 million in limits is zero, and you're facing fines and maybe criminal charges as well.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty defensible. And if the client leaves, maybe that's not a client that you need to have.
Yeah, it's always that catch-22, right? We recognize sometimes that there's clients that maybe we'd be better off without, but cash flow dictates that we need to replace them before they just go away. Yeah, I'm with you on this, that you have to answer honestly. What I like is when you said, hey, you don't have to say where MFA does not exist if you're not asked that question. You can simply state, here are the places where MFA is in place. If the insurance company is doing their job, they're going to ask about where it's not in place after the fact, but so be it, right?
Right. And again, if you don't understand the question, don't answer it. Go back to the carrier and say, what do you mean by this? Yep. And let the carrier kind of respond. And then once you understand it, you can answer it. But they make sure they're doing their job and in terms of what they're being clear of what they're looking for.
Yep. I'm not sure if it's somebody that doesn't see your contact info on here, but we've got someone that asked if you could contact them. So I will give that to you after, but Andrew, Doug's information's on the screen, so you can grab it, but I will give him your email address, assuming you registered with your email address. We will give it to him. If not, please grab it from here or grab it when we send you the deck, so you have it. Just so I've said that as far as that goes. And when we talk about how we answer these questions, is there any guidance to how we're impacting their rate by the way we answer questions?
Or
is it simply not our concern, and our concern is to answer truthfully in all cases?
Well, I would focus more on that. There are going to be certain questions that are going to have more weight than other questions.
Yeah.
I will tell you, whether and I don't, I don't want everyone to now tell their clients to go burn their written information security policies. But I would say not having a written information security policy isn't going to impact you as much as not having multi-factor authentication, as an example there. It's really kind of the key areas I would focus. The carriers are going to be giving a lot more weight to, and each carrier is going to be different, and there's still the aggregate that really gives you gives them an overall risk score. But they're going to give more weight more often to the multi-factor authentication, the patching, the presence of EDR and the backup solutions, as well as the type of firewall or the fact that they have a firewall in place there. Those are going to be the big ones. The other ones can be additive or subtractive in terms of whether they have it or not, or whether you say it's partially deployed. But those are always going to be the big areas that carry the most weight.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Doug. Marlene, thank you, and Augment for the fantastic offer for our members. For those of you that are not members, Augment's offer is for those of you that came to this webinar, but we'd certainly love to talk to you about becoming a member as well. Please feel free to reach out to us if you'd like to talk about membership, to Marlene to talk about Augment and the wonderful job and things they're doing over there, and of course to Doug about SeedPod or comparisons or rates or anything else. Hopefully you guys all found this helpful and actionable. Our attendance records and the registration list says that you should have, which is fantastic. Again, Doug, Marlene, thank you for your time and expertise. And thank you all for spending some time with us this afternoon. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.